Good morning or afternoon, boys and girls. I am going to go through lessons 7 and 8 today because they go over the same information. They go over a lot of very similar ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So last year you dealt a lot with rounding. So rounding, of course, is the same exact thing as it was last year, which is, you might have heard the 5 to the sky, 4 to the floor type of deal. So if it's 5 and above, you give it a shove. 4 and below, you leave it alone, something along that line. You also know that it is an estimate. It's not an exact answer. So when they say estimate, give me an estimate of this, they're actually asking you to round. They're asking you to do certain things. You also know that it's based on place value. So I'm going to write that down. And this part is super important. Wherever the place value is, whichever place value we're rounding to, is really important to give us that information. So if I have a number that's like this, okay, I've already stressed this, but I want to make sure that it's stressed again. This number is not 5.18. We've got to get out of that habit. This is actually 5 and 1800ths. If you're one of those people that's really good with money or measurement or something, in money terms, it's $5.18. If you're talking about measurements, it's 5.18 centimeters or 5 meters and 18 centimeters, whatever it is. So that way you have that idea of the number sense. So when you go through this, you can round to certain place values. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and first round to this place value. And if you would like to pause the video, you can to figure it out for yourself, or just follow along. But I'm going to keep moving on. All right. So I'm going to also circle this place value that's one below it, or one place value below it, 1/10 of that size, and I'm going to circle it. This number is super important. It's going to tell me whether I'm going to be rounding up or rounding down. Now the way that I do it is I actually take my arrow, and I know that I'm going to be rounding down in this sense, and then I'm going to add 0 to this, because I'm not adding anything to my 5. 5 is my lowest possible number. Now, if I go to another place value, let's say it's the same exact number, and I want to now round to the 10th place. So the 8 in my 100th place is going to tell me whether I'm rounding up or down. So go ahead and pause if you'd like to. So from now, if you've paused and, or still listening to me, where the 8 is actually closest to the next number. So I'm going to take my arrow and I'm going to put it so that it's above that part. So it reminds me that I'm adding 1 to this. And so my answer, my rounded answer, is going to be 5 and 2/10. Down here, we rounded down to 5.0. Or we could have just left it as 5. Now, the ones that are the problems that we are given in lesson 7 and 8 are a little bit more complicated than that, and I will show you how that works. So the first problem we were given is 225 and 286 thousandths. So 225 and 286 thousandths. Again, super important that you guys don't say 225.286, because that's not how we say it. We have to actually put in our place value names in order to really fully understand this. Sounds weird, and I'm picky, whatever. All right, so this one says that we're rounding it to the 100ths place. So I'm going to put this over here so I have it in my brain. I have hundredths, ones, and tens. There we go. Now you can see it. All right, so in each of these place values, I'm going to use my place value chart to actually help me out with this. So just keep this in mind. We're going to look at 225 and 286 thousandths. we're going to be rounding to the hundredths place, the ones place, and the tenths place. I'm going to go ahead and just flip this over. And in my place value chart, I'm going to copy what I see. 2, 2, 5, decimal point, 2, 8, 6. All right. So the first one they want us to do, or the first one they want us to round to, is that hundredths place over here. So I'm going to go ahead and underline my hundredths place. And I have a number in my hundredths place. So please make sure that you say that number.
8.
There we go. My lovely assistant. All right. So in our hundredths place, we are looking at 8. So we're either going to round this up, we're going to round this down. This number is going to change in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to go to 1/10 of that. So 1/10 of 100 is 1,000. So I'm going to circle this place value. And of course, this one's going to tell us whether we are rounding up or down. Now, they're really stressing that you guys use the number line, which is fine. I'm going to provide a number line on the bottom, so that way I have it as a reference point. Down here, we're going to have our absolute lowest number, which is a 0, believe it or not. And up here, we're going to have our absolute highest number, which in this case is 10. 10 more. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that way I have this number line available to me. Now, you could use it as a number line. You don't have to use the number line, but you will have to at least know that our little cutoff is right here. It's known as our midpoint. Go ahead and write that down. There we go. So this midpoint tells us whether we are closer to 10, closer to 0. So if we are closer to 0, it'll fall in this range. Sorry, from 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. If we are closer to 10, we are starting at 5 and going up this way. So that way we, of course, then have our estimate. So in this number, we see 6 as the number that's going to tell us whether we are rounding up or rounding down. So because of this number, are we rounding up or are we rounding down? Class?
Rounding up.
Rounding up. Good. So I'm going to put my arrow up and I'm going to arc it up so that way I can see that information. And then I'm going to put +1. So my actual number, my rounded number, is going to be 225 and 29 hundredths. Now I'm not going to put anything in thousandths place because I don't need that. I don't need that information anymore. Thank you for all of your work. You are done. So the next one we're going to look at is 225 and 286 thousandths. In this case, we're going to actually look at the ones place. So I'm going to go ahead and underline my 1 here because this one's going to tell me whether we're moving, this one's going to change in some way, shape, or form. This number here in our tenths place, 1/10 of that, is going to tell us whether we are rounding up or rounding down. So remember that if they're below this midpoint, that they're going to be rounding down. Above this midpoint, they're going to be rounding up. So on the count of 3, class, go ahead and tell me what number, or whether we're rounding up or down. 1, 2, 3.
Rounding down.
Down. All right, so in this case, we're still going to write our arrow below. And this time, we're actually going to add nothing to it. So it's not that we're like changing it or having a complete different number. We're actually just adding nothing to that part. And then we're going to get rid of everything else. So this 86 part, done. We're going to 86 it. Okay, sorry. No, only parents get that. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, so we're going to add nothing to our 5 in the ones place. So this number actually becomes 225 when rounded to the ones place. All right, so we've made it to our final place value for this problem. We are going to look at the tens spot, so I'm going to go ahead and underline my 10, the number that's in my tens place value. And so far I can tell that it is a 2. Mostly a 2. All right, so our 5 is going to tell us whether we are rounding up or rounding down. And so my class can tell me whether we're rounding up or down.
Up.
Good. So we're going to go ahead and take our arrow, go above, and add 1 to this. And then everything else goes away. I'm not needing it. I'm not needing it at all. Poor things. Poor, sad, neglected numbers. So in this case, we have 1 that we're adding to this place value. We have, instead of 220, I now have 230. And so that is it for rounding. There is going to be another video coming up about decomposing numbers.